right, welcome everybody to another episode of Labs Talk. Today with Sandra Bloy from the Bavarian Esports Association.
That's right.
We're going to talk about it shortly. Sven Haiges, Andreas Neumeier, and
Welcome.
let's first do a recap of the last episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start the same way, even though we have our guest here at
Yeah.
the table already. Very quick recap. We did talk a lot about agentic AI in a couple of weeks. That is because we had a few no-shows. We had a few cases of sickness that we had to cover. That's why we jumped from sport to AI to agentic AI. We spoke to Shadul first.
What a change, huh? Yeah, exactly. So Shadul, who's now actually leading our application AI team here at SAP. And then we talked to Christoph Spannagel, who's actually one of the researchers and core developers of a lot of AI solutions and services right now at
He
SAP.
really gave us some in-depth research insight into agentic AI, a couple of really in-depth insights, really very eye-opening moment. But today we're back to our initial plan. Sandra, we met first, I think, in December already. It's been a while back.
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
And thank you for showing up and for not letting us
course.
down, like so many other people in the sports industry, apparently.
I mean, there is a big event time behind me, but I managed to not get sick and not catch any sickness from other people because most of the people from my teams are sick now.
Yeah.
But lucky me, like Germans would say, knocking on wood, right?
Yeah.
That I do not get sick in the future because I'm gonna have a vacation from Monday.
Yeah, you don't want to be sick then. Come on. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm happy to be here and thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Thank you for coming, Sandra. We reached out to you in your function. You're the president of the Bavarian Esports Association.
That's right.
And Sven and I, being the old white man, like literally, when we first spoke in December, you told us first about esports, and it was eye-opening for us. So tell our audience a little bit what is it? What is esports, and what do you do in that association?
Yes, absolutely. So esports is like, there is a big definition and a very accurate definition, but the short definition would be competitive gaming of video games or computer games. So there's like the sports part to it, that you have a competition between people. It could be 1-on-1 or 5-on-5, 3-to-3. There's different team sizes and player sizes, and basically you compete in playing video games. Whatever video game you can imagine that has a like 2-player variation, you can have a competition in. And yeah, the esport is growing. It has been growing for over 40, almost 50 years now. And it's still is not recognized as much as we would like to, but we're trying to bring it into the broad community, and that's mostly also part of what I'm doing.
And I think you mentioned that in our pre-chat, right? It's even because of when it comes to taxation, it's regarded differently, right? So normal sports,
it's a German problem.
Sports things basically are typically taxed with a lower tax rate, I believe, right? But the esports is taxed with the normal tax rate, so that's kind of unfair, and you probably, as a president of the eSport Association, you probably have an opinion on that, right?
I mean, that's a part to the business side, but then you also have the community side where we have like associations, clubs, like sports clubs. We have esports clubs in all over Germany, and esport is not gemeinnützig, as you would say in German, which means the Finanzamt won't let them get money or anything. You cannot quote the money you get, so people are not really willing to give out any money to the sports clubs, to the esports clubs. So we have to rely on sponsors and gaining our own sponsorships and make money through this, and also through our members of the clubs.
Yeah. But nevertheless, it seems to be a flourishing business, actually, right? Because, I mean, you hear a lot about esports and also the great tournaments that are going on, basically, right? And
let's maybe go back to that, from that business side to the esports as such. You were talking about how this is growing, and that's how we got across all of that. For everybody else, is there something like a big team or big brands that exist in esports, something like a team you should know, or a game are competing in? How can we imagine that?
Yeah, I think there's like, since esports is becoming so much more globally than it was before, people start to develop like real celebrities throughout the esport teams and all the players also. So I think I'm from the League of Legends bubble, so I know mostly the League of Legends players. And South Korea is the strongest country that has esport players in most of the games, but League of Legends especially. And they have the team T1. They before were called SKT1 because there was a telephone company that sponsored the team, like Telecom for us. That was the biggest South Korean company that sponsored this team.
And now they changed the name because they have a different sponsor.
I think
now,
so.
or?
I'm not too deep into that sponsoring ship, whatever is going on with them. But yeah, there was a name change to T1. And then there is one player who has been playing in esports in Korea for, I think, almost 10 years or 8 years, something like that. And he's called Faker, and he's like the most known esport player all over the world.
Wow.
And they like worship him, and whenever there's memes of players or someone very talented has to be portrayed, it's always Faker.
So there's a lot of fandom, I would say, right? And I think there's also a lot of competition then, and also a lot of prize money, right? So what is the typical prize money for some of these competitions then? Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a big range because you have a big gap between the very professional, higher up esport teams that have a businesses for their teams. They're not like clubs, little sport clubs like we do have them in Germany, but they're really like businesses that grow and participate in sports and esports. So this is the one side, and then the other side is like local little tournaments. Local tournaments or national tournaments, like German tournaments, go to like 10,000s of euros, like for the first slot, the winner. And then, but the big ones where there's really money involved can go to like tens, millions of dollars, euros, whatever, wherever they play.
So these are real, I mean, as you mentioned, these are real businesses, and they probably have investors, right? So investors invest into these gaming companies more or less, or gaming associations and groups of people, and then they hope to win and get the prize money, and it's then shared probably right among them somehow. Wow.
Let's maybe spend a minute, Sandra, now with all this big business, esports becoming that big. How did you get involved with all of that?
That's it's a little funny story. It's like I came out from the shadows. Basically, I was just throughout my school time, I didn't have as many friends, and so I spent a lot of time on my computer at home, and just reading chats or blogs or whatever was not funny enough for me and not entertaining enough. So I started to play games, and I went from the typical female games, you would call them, like I don't know, farm builders or whatever, or Sims maybe.
I'm just playing a farm game. I must admit, it's on the blockchain though, so I thought it's cool. I got addicted.
They're cool anyways, so totally. And then there was like idle games, and then I started to be like I need more competition, need more something to achieve. So I went over to League of Legends, which I started in season 2, which would be around 2012 or 13, something like this. And then I played some games. I learned how toxic the bubble is, and very soon stopped playing League of Legends. And I had a phase where school was more important, so I did not play as much. And then I came back in my late 10s, like 19, 20. When I turned 20, I started to play again. During my studies, I studied Japanese studies, and through that I had a lot of free time because there was not a demanding of studies. And then I came back into esports and started again, and then I moved to Munich for my studies and got to know the esport club, Munich Esports, and
and you leveled up.
Yeah, I leveled up actually. I leveled up. I grew a big new community. I got to know a lot of my now friends, and spent a lot of time in gaming and digitally, but also physically, like in real life.
So esports has really, really changed your life in this way, basically, right? So that's fantastic, and I think then you're a perfect fit, of course, for the president of this organization, which is very nice. Very cool.
In the same field of questions, we understand that. In particular for you personally, inclusivity is a big topic, and you're being a woman that plays a big role for you. Is that something the Esports Association is actively promoting as well? Is that a topic that the esports community is driving?
Yes, absolutely. Like we do it on smaller levels, on lower levels, like the local esport clubs, like Munich Esports, for example. I have been for the last 2 years the equal opportunities officer, which is called Gleichstellungsbeauftragte in German. And I was just for representing the female part of the community, just to be there, just to show that there is a woman standing up for the whole community and the minority that's behind that, to be a person to refer to ask questions, to get to know if you need other female friends or just people to talk to. And it was quite a fun experience to be that person. I gave that role now over to a colleague of mine from the club.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to do just as great job as me. And in the association, we also do this. We have more of political order. We are more involved into political decisions, what esports all over means, and what esport decisions we have to make for the political reasons in Germany. But also I'm trying to, like me personally, to represent the female part, especially since I'm the first woman to lead any German esport association.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's also like a very big representation from
just in general, actually, that's a question that just pops up in my head, actually. How much does it make a difference actually being a man or woman when it comes to esports, right? So in classical sports, we have different physiologies, right? So then men may be faster, for example, because of more muscles, but when it comes to esports and clicking some buttons, doesn't seem to make sense. So are there teams typically divided between men and women, or how does this work?
Yeah, actually, like when we go from the basics, we have no difference in the base from men or women. We all just need hand-eye coordination, as well as some brain to understand the game and logically comprehend what is happening during the game. But other than that, you don't have and need to have any physical advancements to be able to play esports. So which is why we call esports a way more inclusive field than regular sports or classic sports. But also still there is like I would say the community that teaches girls to be more aware of their life and how they want to spend their time living, how they want to learn, what they should learn. And I think that's the base why less women play esports, because more men are willing to invest their time and their money, whatever, into esports and do that full time. But less women are taught to be those people to do it as well. So I think that's also like a community thing.
So even in esports, basically, there's something to catch up. Absolutely, right? There's still a gap. Yes, still work to be done, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Only to cover that one question, we made a quick note here. Is there something? I'm pretty sure there is like male only, female only teams. Are there like mixed teams?
Yes.
Is that or do you, like in regular sports, have that different classes and leagues?
There is different approaches from different games and different companies, because what we have a difference in esport is companies produce the games and also make the rules of the games. So however the competition looks, the company decides. In regular sports, we have the sport, and the sport decides what the rules are, which means that we have businesses that decide how the teams and how the league structures have to look. But other than that, we have all sorts of teams. We have male only, we have female only, and we have mixed teams. And I think for me personally, and there's different opinions on that, the end goal should be mixed teams in all sports. And this is not forbidden anywhere right now. It's just more likely to have more successful men in the games, which means the pool of players you can choose from for your team is mainly male and less female. And we have to put more support into female progression to make them come up to the professional esport clubs.
Okay. So let's maybe switch again to the overall topic of the size of the esports clubs and games, basically. So how big is esports, and can you name maybe some of the biggest things that are happening in esports? I would say, right? So are the big tournaments, for example, right? So
yes, absolutely.
What's happening?
I think you mostly determine what is big in esports about the size of visitors and watchers on Twitch, for example. Because you have live events like World Cup finals in specific games, where we have over 100,000 visitors in Korea, especially because there is the biggest esport community worldwide. But then you also have like digital events, which rely on viewers, right? On Twitch, on YouTube, wherever the tournament is live streamed. It counts how many people are watching concurrently or all together throughout the whole tournament live streaming. And I think there is a big variance between how many people are visiting live and also watching digitally, because digitally is more accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
Like most people have a phone or a computer or anything to watch on. Even a TV can nowadays log into internet and stream a Twitch stream.
But there are also physical events, right? And we're going to cover the SAP Garden, for example, later on. So there must be physical events. So there's meaning in going to an esports event that's happening physically. So what's the special thing there, basically? So because you see a bunch of people sitting in front of laptops, probably, right, or computers.
Yes.
But it's still somehow entertaining, I must assume, right? So
yes, that's true. My favorite example is League of Legends World Cups.
Yeah.
Riot, the company behind League of Legends, puts a lot of money into the whole show. They create own bands they take musicians and put them together to a new created band, let them perform, write music especially just for the game, and have their own like fandom band basically.
Nice.
Then the people just come to see their idols, their favorite esport players, just like in regular sports. You go to a Allianz Arena to watch your favorite FC Bayern players.
Yeah, nice.
The same is happening in esport. And there you have fewer occasions to do so, right? Because football games we have every weekend, and esport events is like big esport events happens like 2, 3 to 6 times a year maybe, where you have the chance to really go visit big celebrities.
But only to help me understand that's just the physical events. There is probably more frequent events that are online only or
absolutely
only. Okay, got it.
Because they're also easier to invest and observe and like lay out, right?
Okay.
There's less people involved, less money involved. It's easier to steer the whole thing from a computer at home than have a whole crew to make a stage and the whole team, all the people that have to be
It's like for Labs Talk, right? Recording remotely is always easy, actually, right? But in this case, we're super happy that you're here because we're all based in Munich, of course, right? So, but normally it's way easier.
A lot of time we just do remote, just for practical reasons. We try to
absolutely
maintain a schedule. We do that from remote. I guess it's just the same. But this habit or this frequent schedule, that brings me to another question. If you go to a recurring event, if you participate in a league, there's games. In regular sport, there's a lot of practice involved with that. That must be very similar in esports, right?
Yes, absolutely. You need to put a lot of time, invest a lot of time into your team if you want to become a good player and reach a professional level, right? It's more like a full-time job or even above that, because I think like in League of Legends, for example, just to give an example how long a game takes, one League of Legends game takes between 35 to rarely 50 minutes. So you have to spend at least an hour per game, and one game just gives you one game practice, right? And you have to play a lot of more games to become better. So you spend like maybe 8 to 12 hours a day if you're a professional playing the game only and just sitting in front of a computer, right?
Oh, so it really becomes a job then.
Absolutely.
It really becomes a job.
It's
no more, and there are probably phases where gamers or players say this is not fun anymore. Although initially they might have been chosen, or maybe someone got discovered because they're such a good casual gamer, right? But then
there's also the gap, right? Because you have the casuals that play like maybe the 8 hours a day on the weekend because they have the time, but most people have a full-time job, right? So they don't have the time to invest daily over 5 to 8 hours just to play a game and become better. So I see there's also like, that's why the age difference in esport is very low. I think it's in sports is the same. Maybe football is a little different. The players can be a little older, but in esports, if you're 25 and over, it's almost over for your career.
Okay.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Because your hand-eye coordination
exactly your brain is deteriorating, right? Your brain cells. Your brain cells are going down. Your reaction time is getting slower, right? So 25 is like the sweet spot. We have Faker is I think 27 or 28, so he's like one of the older ones in the whole thing, but most players that get or become professionals start 16, 17, then they get found. However that happens, I have no clue. I think they just apply themselves to the teams or show their whatever games they play, how they're playing the games. Tryouts, what's called in our bubble.
Really.
Right, and then you start 16, 17, and also like there's a problem with especially games where you have shooters, right? Because shooters in Germany, for example, usually are allowed it's from 16. Under 16 you can't play them. So how are you becoming a professional if your age has to be 16 to be good, because you're the youngest and the more reactive, but you cannot play before 16 legally, right?
Legally.
If your parents allow you to play, you can still train, but legally you would not be able to participate in tournaments.
Got it.
Sense.
So that's an
interesting area for sure. That's an interesting area.
It's very hard to manage that.
So does it then typically mean if someone is joining such a club, for example, that you train from home, or would you once a week, twice a week, 5 times a week, or 7 times a week meet somewhere where everybody, like at a LAN party in earlier times? I mean, that's what I know from my youth at least, right? We would take our laptops, right?
And
so would you meet physically typically, or is it then a remote training? Typically everybody sits alone at home basically, or how does this
I think it's a mixed thing, and also a difference between really professionals and like semi-professional teams, because semi-professional teams usually don't have a spot to train in. Someone has to invest to build a clubhouse basically where you have 5 PCs, which cost a lot of money. They have to be updated regularly because PCs, right? Their components go out of age very fast, so they have to adjust and update those parts, and that costs a lot of money to maintain, which means clubs like that don't have that funding really struggle to keep up a clubhouse where people can train. So those teams usually train from home, or they can rent out places to go to train for if they have like a special something coming up, special tournament or anything. And then the professionals have real clubhouses, right? Also in Germany, we have Maus Esports, which just opened last year in summer, I think, in Hamburg, a new clubhouse, right, at the Hauptbahnhof. And you can just go in and watch, and they have like a lot of PCs, and their teams come there and try out and do trainings. So there's like a difference, right? It's money funding basically.
So you're based in Munich. Is there a clubhouse in Munich? So were you able to find money for a clubhouse?
Actually, Munich Esports just half a year ago or 4 months ago opened their own clubhouse room. We share an office room in the Gamerei with 2 other businesses, basically companies, which use the room as a bureau over the day, like the normal working hours. And after hours and weekends, we have this as a practice room because there are 5 setups now. We have a sponsor with HP Omen. We found a salesperson that was willing to sponsor us and all the PCs and hardware we needed. And now we have 5 setups, which we can rent out to our teams.
So that really means the players come, for example, over the weekend in this case, and they just log in with some player 1 account, player 2 account, player 3 account.
They have their personal accounts, but
and then they log in with their personal credentials to the game or something like that, right?
Exactly.
And then they're able to game.
It makes a difference because, like, if you digitally play at home alone, you still make team calls, right? There is a team captain that makes shout outs what you have to do, where is everyone going, what is the next move. So there's still dynamics between the team members. And then you have the physical variation where you can hear them like face to face and see them and react to their movements and whatever. You can scream through the room and everyone will hear it, and you can cheer together, right? It's a lot more fun and a lot more motivating than doing from home.
That's like a regular esports team would operate. Just trying to stick to what we had as a chair. That's not so much what the association does.
Yes.
What you're describing about, that's really how teams come together. In your role as the president, tell us a little bit what the association does. I imagine that as an umbrella over many teams or many smaller associations, maybe?
Right. We're over, like, our members of the association are the clubs that sit in all over Bavaria. So all the esports clubs that formed of either from universities or just regular esport teams, however they formed. They have a club, sports clubs, and then they join us as a member of the association. And the association itself has a job to be the political voice of esport in Bavaria. So we talk to ministries, to political persons that have saying in esport, or at least maybe could have if they wanted to. So that's what we do, and try to talk to them, try to get fundings from the state. Talk to people that see esport or don't know anything about esport, and we have to like do all the talking and explaining what is esport actually. We just were invited in winter to a sports committee from the Green Party, and we talked to a lot of sports people from Munich, and I think 80% didn't know what esport is. So that was very like enlightening to me that so many people see us, and we were like only the youngest people in the whole thing. There was like, I don't know, 50 plus people that were 50 and older, sports saying people in Munich and around, but we were like the only 20 somethings people, and had to explain what is esport, and they were like, oh, fun, and they turned around and went.
I mean, we told you at the beginning, right? For us, it was also a completely different world, right? So we knew there is esports, but we did not know much about it.
I had some idea about games. Like I remember Counter-Strike from back in the days.
Very cool.
And still today, one of the most played titles.
Just a smaller question. Thank you for that. Smaller question. You were talking about how your that umbrella organization, like how many smaller associations or teams or clubs do you represent?
At the moment, we have, I think, 11 clubs from Bavaria that are from all the bigger cities and rural entities in Bavaria that we represent. And then we have also 4 companies that work in esports at some point, whatever. And they are also members of the association. So
how many people do you represent? So how many members do you have in total?
I think that's over 500 if you put it all together. Yes.
Yeah, wow.
And just to like, that's the down view, and the up view, like there must be a German association. Like,
yes.
Like that's just Bavaria alone that you represent, but just to get the bigger picture, how many are there in Germany?
Associations like the Bavarian one.
Just to put it into perspective, associations.
Members. There is 2 others, the North Rhine-Westphalia one and Schleswig-Holstein, and those are there's just 3 right now, because the thing with esport is we build from top to down. Usually sports build from bottom to the upper part, right?
Bottom
we had local sport teams, and then they formed a Bavarian association and so on. But the esport first formed the German association, the ESPD, or Esportbund Deutschland. And they formed first to be a voice for esport in the global context. And then after that, I think 2 or 3 years later, the German Bundesländer started to talk about
federal states.
Thank you. Started to talk about they needed their own associations. So NRW and Schleswig-Holstein formed first, and then 2 years later we formed Bavaria, in 2024.
So we talked a bit about events already, right? So that's next on our pre-chat list. So the biggest events are. Can you name a few? You mentioned some indie dev events too, actually, right?
Yeah,
and we just had this GG Bavaria, by the way, right? Which Andreas me promised to show up, and then we didn't have time, so this would have given us, we didn't show up, unfortunately.
We didn't show up.
What was
sad.
GG Bavaria, for example? I'm sorry.
That's all right.
And what are the other big events you could name drop here, basically, just to give everybody
yes, absolutely.
idea?
GG Bavaria is basically funded by the Bavarian state from the digital ministerium, and they gave the money or funding the money to give indie developers, so studios that create games in a small circle, basically, a stage to present their games, and different stages of the games, like just a prototype or already ready-made game. There's different varieties, and around that we build a convention basically, where artists from the gaming scene come and show their products and what they make. Also like clubs, Munich Esports was there. A club from Augsburg was there as well. And then we had from the association, we had 2 competitions happening, Sim Racing and Super Smash Brothers, 2 games that we presented and made a competition available to every Bavarian player basically.
Talking about events, I guess we also need to talk about event locations.
Yeah,
right?
but before we go there, you just mentioned Sim Racing and Super Smash Brothers.
Oh,
and that's exactly what we prepared for actually, right? So because we researched 2 of these pictures around Sim Racing and Super Smash Brothers.
Those in our audience who don't know what we're talking about.
So let us just very quickly, for everybody who doesn't know what Sim Racing, for example, and Super Smash Brothers means, just share the screen here. So let's first talk about Sim Racing. So we see like super crazy racing simulation setup, right? So that's not just your normal laptop with a couple of keys, right?
Yes. You would call it a rig, basically. So rig is the term to call a sim racing station that you build at home, or you can buy ready-made. And then you have a steering wheel, right? You have pedals and usually have a seating option.
Nice.
Very felt to the Formula One or whatever racing car you're choosing, whatever racing game you're choosing.
So if some professional tournaments are happening, basically every player would be sitting in such a rig basically, and then of course I can imagine it's quite it's quite amazing to steer the wheel here. Yeah. And then you mentioned Super Smash Brothers. That's down here. So that looks a lot like Nintendo, for example, right?
Yeah, it's a Nintendo game actually. So Nintendo directly produced that game. I think right now we're at the 8th edition, so this is a very old game and already had over all the Nintendo consoles that went out. There was different editions, and this is the edition we play right now. And you just as a platformer, you have usually 1v1 if you're really tournament based. This is a 2v2 right now. You can see how much percentage damage was dealt already, and then the goal to win here is to throw the opponent over the stage. That is
okay.
And those are really, see it right now, but it's a little bigger, the window actually, and then the platforms they are standing on right now, they're extend a little bit more, and over that is just air, and if they fall in the air and don't come back up, then you win.
Over. It's typically 2 players playing here, or 4 players.
This
maybe
is 4 right now in the picture, but usually in normal tournaments is 1v1, so just 2 characters playing.
Very cool.
We had a few fails in the past couple of weeks. I'm a bit worried. There's a bunch of people outside this room that are watching us. I'm not sure if we failed with something today. Those people moved to a different room, so they found a location. Let's talk about locations.
Exactly.
Of course.
Let's talk about the next location. We're doing extremely bad when it comes to timing, by the way.
We're way over time today.
But we're having such a good conversation. So
nevertheless, let's very quickly. You spoke about people coming together. You spoke about how these events happen, how people gather for a tournament. And there is at least 1 or 2 locations here in Munich. The one where your office is, there's people coming there, but there's another one.
Exactly, the SAP Garden, or the gaming room would be called SAP Gaming Garden. And the SAP was able to introduce a room that is fully equipped with consoles and PCs, and you can visit it, I think, 365 days a year, so it's open every day. Supervised, I think. So yeah, I think it should be supervised, but you could also rent it out, like for if you have an event or need anything to do in a gaming space, you can rent out a place. And I think we also, like Munich Esports, did already some events over there, and it was a cool location to use. Yes,
I mean it's a phenomenal location, right? If you've seen the SAP Garden, it's very modern architecture, right? And inside must be also pretty cool, I guess. So it's something nice to have in Munich.
I can recommend the room. It's very well decorated. It's very cute.
Let's maybe really try and get there. And,
at least something.
Yeah, you have our commitment that we're trying hard to get into the SAP Garden.
Okay, I trust you.
Anyway, I too understand, and we covered that in one of the questions earlier. Most of the events are online, even though there's physical locations. What is it for those that listened to us today and that are now interested, where would you go to watch esports event?
Basically, Twitch and YouTube are those platforms that you would use the most. Twitch is mostly used by influencers because they can stream their content, just play a game, stream their camera, just like we're doing right now, and then also show their gameplay. And people just enjoy chatting with the people and watching their gameplay. Maybe they can't afford to buy the game or don't have the computer or whatever hardware to play the game, so they just enjoy playing it someone else. And YouTube is the same. YouTube is mostly used for, I think, bigger events. Less influencers stream on YouTube. It's more on like restreaming an event, actually. Like you would watch football on any TV canal.
Aren't there also some elements of paying, for example, or paying the person that's streaming, the content creator, basically on Twitch? Is that happening a lot, that basically someone who watches the game donates €1 or €2, basically?
Yes, absolutely.
So
people make a living of that. So most streamers on Twitch, or like less YouTube but more Twitch, stream as a living. And that's how they make their money month to month. So
interesting.
There's a lot of money into that.
That's
and
interesting.
The share from Twitch itself is less than what they get donated.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
All right.
Cool. So you mentioned Discord, right? When it comes to audio, I believe, although you can also go on video on Discord, right?
Yes,
but it's mainly probably used for speaking while you play a game.
For meeting up. Right? That's like the meeting hotspot for training sessions or whatever. We still have TeamSpeak from older times, especially in shooter like Counter-Strike. People still use TeamSpeak because they think it's more functional, whatever the reason is. I like Discord more. And then we use Discord, like Munich Esports, for example, has a community of over 4,500 people that use the Discord regularly, either chat for their interested topics, or they meet up in audio rooms and can practice together.
Cool. So you basically just have different channels for all the different games,
we have
for
a lot
example,
of channels.
And then you can meet in there, basically.
Exactly.
Nice. Yeah, cool. What's next, right? That's the final topic.
We're way over time today, but let's find an end, and we typically try and make this on a forward-looking note. We try to get an understanding of where you see this all going. Like we spoke about this before, but just to bring it in your words, what's next for esports? What can the larger audience expect? What's happening 2025, 2026? Maybe?
A lot, I hope.
Okay.
I mean, there's like locally or nationally, the new coalition just formed, and we're waiting. We've been waiting for over 6 years to get the Gemeinnützigkeit for esport.
Okay.
So we're still waiting and hoping that this coalition will bring it over and actually make it the truth and right. But then also globally, we have last year we had the first Esport World Cup happening in Riyadh in Arab Emirates, right? And it's happening this year again, so they made it possible. I mean, it's controversial because the Arabs are putting their money into it, and it's not really, if it's going to hold up, we will see.
Yeah, it's probably also questionable when it comes to inclusivity.
Absolutely. There's a lot of topics you have to discuss if you're watching esport or seeing esport happening in Riyadh.
Yeah.
And then also we had, I think 3 or 4 months ago, the Olympic Committee announced that esport will be Olympic, at least in some parts, not all the games, but some games. So we will see how that's gonna go around.
That's amazing. It's Olympic esport games, basically.
Yes.
Very nice. Wow.
Very exciting. That's happening.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So that's a great outlook, I think.
With that,
Olympic esport games.
Olympic esports.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? So we
perspective.
I would watch it for sure, actually, right? So it sounds like
that's another promise I want to see kept up.
Yes, I will send you a video of how I watch esports. Sandra, thank you so much. It was really mind-opening, or it was kind of very interesting for me to talk to you. I mean, a lot of new stuff that I learned, right? The 2 old men learned a lot here. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully we can really meet up basically in real person, basically maybe at one of these events in the SAP Garden, for example.
Maybe.
Yeah, it would be amazing.
That out. Sandra,
Looking
also
forward.
thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing this insight. It's still an amazing world that you're in, and we are definitely curious.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you everybody for watching.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Ciao.